What did you think when you saw that?
I'm no stranger to people who don't know what they're talking about, trying to silence women of what Elon Musk is, the disinformation, as I believe the Prime Minister.
They let a lot of these young women down.
But he only then raised his head in 2012 because it came to public prominence,
Yes.
because he had to.
Imagine being a victim of a grooming gang, desperately seeking justice, only to have your pleas ignored by the very person claiming to fight for women's rights. This is the reality for many who've tried to reach out to Jess Phillips. In this video, we'll take you on a journey through Phillips's political career, exposing the stark contrast between her public image and her behind-the-scenes actions. Get ready for a series of revelations that will challenge your perception of political integrity. Jess Phillips has built a reputation as a fierce advocate for women's rights, but a closer look reveals a more complex picture. Her impassioned speeches in Parliament and frequent media appearances have painted her as a champion for women's causes. She's known for her straight-talking style and willingness to challenge the status quo. But is this public persona truly reflective of her actions and policies? While Phillips often speaks out against violence against women and girls, her actions behind the scenes tell a different story. One glaring inconsistency is her reluctance to meet with victims of grooming gangs. These victims, who have suffered unimaginable trauma, have reportedly been ignored or dismissed by Phillips. This disconnect between her public rhetoric and private actions raises serious questions about her true priorities. Phillips's voting record on women's issues also reveals some surprising inconsistencies.
Some bully boy game. Of some bully boy public school that I probably won't understand any more than I understand parliamentary procedures.
Those things are radical to great parts of our country at the moment because they simply don't exist.
While she's quick to criticize the government's handling of domestic violence cases, her own voting history shows a mixed bag of support for related legislation. She's abstained from key votes on issues directly impacting women's safety and rights, raising eyebrows among her constituents and fellow MPs alike. The carefully crafted image of Jess Phillips as a champion for women seems to serve her political ambitions more than the women she claims to represent. Her fiery speeches generate headlines and boost her profile. But when it comes to taking concrete action, the results are less impressive. It's a pattern that's become all too familiar in modern politics. A polished public image that doesn't quite match the behind-the-scenes reality. This disconnect between words and actions extends beyond women's issues. Phillips has positioned herself as a voice for transparency and accountability in politics. Yet her own record of financial disclosures has come under scrutiny. There have been instances where she's failed to register her interests on time, despite her vocal criticism of other MPs for similar oversights. As we peel back the layers of Jess Phillips's public persona, a more nuanced picture emerges. Is she truly the champion she claims to be? Or is her fierce advocacy more about political opportunism than genuine commitment to women's rights? The gap between her words and actions suggests that the truth may be more complicated than her carefully cultivated image would have us believe. The image of Jess Phillips as a crusader for transparency is about to be shattered. What if her own financial disclosures reveal a pattern that's more than just absent-mindedness?
It's going to fail simply because of the math. The Conservatives will vote for it, Labour will vote against it. They are being whipped to do so.
Well, the laws apply to Elon Musk as much as they apply to anybody else.
You'd like to see him prosecuted?
Well, look, it is whether it is a prosecutable offence.
The Parliamentary Standards Commissioner used one word to describe her attitude towards financial declarations. That word: unacceptable. This damning assessment of a self-proclaimed champion of accountability raises serious questions about Phillips's commitment to the very principles she claims to uphold. Let's be clear. MPs are required to register any income from non-parliamentary work within 28 days. It's not a suggestion or a guideline. It's a rule designed to ensure transparency and accountability. But for Jess Phillips, this seems to be more of a loose recommendation than a binding obligation. Over a period of nearly 3 years, Phillips has been investigated multiple times for failing to declare her financial interests on time. We're not talking about a single slip-up here. In May 2022, she was found to have registered income from public speaking, television appearances, newspaper articles, and books late on 18 occasions. 18. Let that sink in. The Parliamentary Standards Commissioner described these as inadvertent breaches. But at what point does a pattern of behaviour stop being inadvertent?
I genuinely think that the Labour Party members and those people who might want to join the Labour Party are ready to try something different. The thing is that Robert Jenrick has only just started. It took Elon Musk to make Robert Jenrick care about the grooming gangs.
And start looking deliberate. But wait, there's more. In 2023, Phillips was again referred to the Common Standards Committee. This time, she registered payment for a lecture at the University of Bristol 2 days after the 28-day deadline. Another minor breach, they said. But how many minor breaches does it take before we start questioning the integrity of the person committing them? Daniel Greenberg, the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner, didn't mince words. He criticized Phillips for her casual attitude towards the Register of Interests. Casual. That's not exactly the attitude we expect from someone who positions herself as a fierce advocate for accountability, is it? Despite these repeated breaches, no further action was taken against Phillips after the investigations. This raises questions about the enforcement of these rules. Are we seeing a case of one rule for the political elite and another for everyone else?
Just explain what that means.
Like a grooming gang will literally mark you with a knife so that your ownership is clear.
The J report was much broader than that. It wasn't only into grooming gangs. There were about 6 towns touched on in that report.
Phillips, for her part, has expressed that her failures to declare interests were attempts to comply with the rules. But this explanation rings hollow when we consider the sheer number of late registrations. It's a pattern that suggests either a stunning level of incompetence or a calculated disregard for the rules. Critics argue that Phillips's repeated failures to declare her interests on time reflect a deeper issue. Is this a case of prioritizing personal gain over transparency? Is Phillips more concerned with cashing in on her public profile than she is with maintaining the integrity of her office? As we peel back the layers of Jess Phillips's public persona, a troubling pattern emerges. Critics argue that her actions reveal a stark disconnect between her carefully crafted image as a champion for women's rights and her reluctance to address the needs of actual victims. This glaring contradiction raises serious questions about her true priorities. Brendan O'Neill didn't mince words when he described Phillips as embodying moral cowardice for her failure to confront the issues surrounding grooming gangs head-on. It's a damning indictment that cuts to the heart of the matter.
Like me slapping the face of the activists who helped get me where I am, to say that they're all wrong and they're all stupid. At the moment, I would say we wouldn't win the general election. If the general election was called today, and you know, a week is a long time in politics, so 4 years is an even longer time.
How can someone who claims to fight for women consistently shy away from one of the most pressing women's issues of our time? This reluctance to engage with victims, coupled with her repeated financial oversights, paints a picture of a politician more concerned with maintaining power than serving her constituents. It's a stark reminder that we must look beyond the polished speeches and fiery rhetoric. In the end, it's actions, not words, that truly define a leader's character.